Get wild with watermelon.
I'm Greg.
I'm Julie, and we're the Crafty Winers.
Drinking huckleberry cider that we made.
Yep, it's really good too.
It's getting warm because we're not drinking it fast enough.
It's because we're talking.
We've been doing a lot of filming today.
Yes, we have. We are going to do I was calling it a wine to start out with, and then I realized it really wasn't going to be a wine because watermelon just tastes better carbonated. So we like the truly watermelon flavored seltzers. So we are making a seltzer, watermelon seltzer.
Excited. Can you tell?
He's really excited. He's really excited because I get to do all the chopping of this watermelon.
She's actually doing most of the driving on this one.
So it's going to end up being probably about 2 large watermelons. And that's not an exact science because watermelons are all different sizes,
We'll give you the weight in a minute.
different juices, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this all up. You can cut it any way you want to. You just want to get the fruit away from the rind. And then I'm going to blend it in a blender, but I'll cut this up and then I'll be back. All right, so I got 2 watermelons all cut up. Got pieces in here and here. I cut them kind of in narrow pieces because of one thing. Instead of having to take this lid off every time, because this whole watermelon will not fit in here. So I'm going to have to pour it out as it goes. But, so you don't have to take the whole lid off. This has a hole in the middle. I think most of them do. So I just leave this on and I feed the watermelon through here. But you can start with it off to fill it up.
My hands are wet with star sand. So you do want to either use gloves or
make sure you sanitize
your hands. And then just be careful what you touch between.
Like, don't put the corgis in between.
Oh.
Oh, they're going to get watermelon.
But they got to do sit pretties. Laura's got to do sit pretty.
They love watermelon. They stand underneath me while I'm cutting it up, just in case I drop some on the floor.
They also likely will go crazy when the blender starts.
All right, so I'm going to put that on, and I use the puree setting, and sometimes I have to use the wooden spoon to kind of help it out until it gets really going, and then it's easy after that. Don't do that. Spin for a little bit.
So that was a little tricky to get started. We had to use the spoon, but once it starts,
then it's easy.
Then it will grab each piece as you put it in.
So then I've got a brewer's bag in here, which is kind of convenient because it has this little drawstring, so it kind of hangs on the side. I'm going to pour this in, and this isn't going to be enough. I'll have to keep going through this process. And it's a messy process too. Disclaimer.
The corgis are okay with that. So that was about 5 pitcherfuls.
Yeah. Let's set this to the side. We may need some more juice once I get this all squeezed out because it's being displaced right now by the pulp that's in there. But you'll see when I lift this up that there's juice and pulp in here right now. And I am not going to do this on camera. I'll do it over the sink because it's a very messy process. But I'm going to squeeze all this juice out of here. And my hands are also sanitized. And you're left with very little pulp in this bag when you're done with it. So I'm going to go do that and I'll be back.
So we will be pouring some of this juice out, but you can save some of the juice that you have to pour out for later sweetening if you keep it in a sealed container and chilled.
In the fridge, yeah.
In the fridge. This is mostly juice. It's thick juice, kind of thicker juice. It's not so thick that we can't do a hydrometer reading though.
It's pretty watery, which is good.
If it's too thick, the hydrometer is not going to do a proper measurement. And this, I mean, this is borderline. But this is homebrew too, so we're going to be close enough. It's more important what the gravity is at the end than in the beginning, in my opinion. You might be a little off on the ABV, final ABV, but it's a little foamy, and I haven't even used my drill yet.
Yeah, well, that was caused from all the blending and the squeezing.
I'm going to say 1.038, trying to account for the foam.
1.038.
So now she's going to use our tool on craftywiners.com/tools.
I'm going to plug in that number.
We're going to figure out what ABV are we wanting this to be.
Well, since it's going to be a seltzer, we don't want it to
like
be
8 the most, 7.
Yeah, I mean, we're in control of this, but Trulies are like 5.5, those kind of seltzers.
Surely we can do better than that.
I would think so. Why not? Ciders are 7 or 8.
Truly we can do better than that.
Truly we can. Okay, 1.038. So I don't know, 7.
Let's do 7. It's probably gonna go ultra dry anyway.
And it's 100% full. So very little sugar, 6.8 ounces.
That's good because that means we're throwing less out.
Yeah.
So we will get this. We're just gonna say 6.1 ounces of sugar. Pour our sample back in. 6.1 ounces of sugar. So we're at like 132 ounces now. So we are a little over.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be okay just leaving that in there. It's not so much over that it's going to be a problem. But again, if you wanted to use some of this to help flavor it at the end, when we get to the end, we'll explain what you need to do that. But just keep it in a sealed container, keep it cold. Flipper.
Whoops.
This is using a fancy pumpkin gutter and a kind of old drill. Let's try that again. Now we will do the gravity again just to double check to make sure we got the gravity that we were after. And of course using the drill doesn't help the foaminess at all. 1.056 or something.
How about 4?
I can see that.
Or 0.55? 1.0 what?
Let's do 1.055.
Okay.
Again, I'm kind of just basing how many ticks it's going to be based on the foam
That
depth.
foam is kind of...
So it's not an exact science, but this is homebrew. So
Yes, it is.
now I'm not going to pour this back in there because we're going to use it to add stuff to. I love the color of this.
I know, it's really pretty.
I'm going to just set this off to the side so it's not blocking the camera view. It's bad. This is still dripping, however.
Did I tell you this is a messy endeavor? This is one of the messier wines we made. So I am going to add half a teaspoon of pectic enzyme to this.
That will help particles of fruit get broken down so that the yeast can grab all the sugar.
Ah, I forgot my mini whisk.
I'll fix it.
Yay, mini whisk.
We had a death of a pH meter.
Oh, yes, we did.
This is a new one that had to replace it. It had a lot of uses. It lived a good long life. This one looks pretty much identical to it, but it's a different brand.
Yeah, it looks pretty much the same.
I'm going to have to calibrate this. This is jumping between 6.7 and up to 7 and down to 6.5. It's not right. Okay, so the new pH meter is a piece of crap.
Yeah.
We won't be recommending that. it was jumping from 1 to 7 back to 4. It was a piece of crap. Looked like the one we had before, but not the same performance. So we are using our backup, which is a pool pH meter. And our pH is 5.24.
All right.
And we are okay with that. We would normally, on most beverages, take it down to close to 4.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe this is going to lower naturally. So we're going to leave it.
Okay. All right, so we're not going to adjust the pH. I'm just going to pour the pectin enzyme in there for you to stir up. It's had plenty of time to dissolve while we were messing with the pH meter.
While I was cussing the pH meter out.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stir it up again.
So, next step is he's going to give me a 1/4 cup of this must, this really good smelling must, and I am going to take it and heat it up for 10 seconds in the microwave to get it warm.
You can also put it in a warm room next to a heater, something else you want it to be 85, 90 degrees or so.
All right, to my warm must, I am going to add 2 teaspoons of Go Firm, which is not mandatory, but we like it. We have good results with it.
If you use Go Firm, then you also add some Fermento at those different stages, which I will describe while I am transferring our must into a carboy.
And while I'm stirring and stirring and stirring.
So this is going to be fermenting in our 55-degree fermenting room because we want it to be a slow fermentation with a fruity drink and using the yeast that we're using, which is Fresco cider yeast. Mm-hmm. If you're doing it warmer than that, your days are going to be different. But basically with this cool temperature, I'm going to wait till the 5th day and I am going to degas this because it's going to have a lot of CO2 that it doesn't need. Then I'm going to add a teaspoon of Fermento, which you do want to do if you're using the Go Firm hydration like we're doing. And then I use an oxygen one to put oxygen in it. You can watch our video on these things to see why. If you're doing it warmer, like 75 degrees or warmer, you'll want to do that on the 3rd day instead of the 5th day. None of that is mandatory except for probably the Fermento. If you're using Go Firm to start with, if you're not giving it a nutrient to start with, you're going to want to add the nutrient later. And I think we are going to have to either waste or put away a little bit of this because it's going to just blow out the top. So this is going to go into a jar and we will decide later if we want to put it back into our fermented drink.
Okay.
You see how full this is. If I go up any higher, it's just going to go out the blow-off tubes.
Yes, it will. And from past experience, this one will bubble a lot.
This, I have a marble in here for now, but that's just to keep any insects or anything from crawling in while we're waiting for our yeast to hydrate. But this will be changed to a silicone tube that will run into our bucket of star sand that we've been using today. And that ends up being our blow-off tube. You can use a twist tie to secure the tube on if you want, because sometimes these will pop out, especially with the weight of a tube coming out of them. You can also use a regular airlock if you'd rather. We use blow-off tubes for the first 3 days or 5 days. The day that I do the Fermento, I switch the blow-off tube out for a regular airlock. You don't have to do it exactly the way that we do it. These are just our habits, and they work for us.
And I am going to put a full teaspoon of this Fresco cider yeast.
You definitely don't need a full teaspoon, but we have a lot of this cider yeast.
Yes, we do.
You never want to be wasteful, but our fermentations almost always start.
And then
so
you
could probably get away with a half a teaspoon.
I just dunk it lightly in there just to get it incorporated into the liquid. And then we are going to put both of these things in front of our little heater and let them sit for 2 hours, and then we will add the yeast into here and put it away.
Yeah. So Watch this to see when it starts bubbling, and then your 3 or 5 day timer starts from there. And then if you did use the Go Firm on that 3rd or 5th day, based on the temperature, you will add a teaspoon of Fermento. And then just watch from there for this to stop all activity. You shouldn't have anything coming out of your airlock. It should be mostly still. There could be a little bit of degassing going on, but at that point, take a hydrometer reading. And if it is 1.000 or lower, wait a couple of days and take the reading again and make sure it stays the same. And if so, you're done. If it doesn't get down to 1.000, it's called a stall, probably. Then 9 times out of 10, there could be something else floating in here, but it's probably sugar that didn't get converted to alcohol. And at that point, you can decide whether or not you want to drink it the way that it is, or if you want to restart the stall. And we've got videos on that to help you with that. But that's what we're going to do now. We're going to stick this aside, let this warm up, let this sit for 2 hours, and then this is going to go into here, and that fermentation process starts.
And we'll be back in a little bit for you.
So it's been a little over 2 weeks, and this is done. The final gravity was 0.992, which is quite dry. And 2 days later, as expected, it was still 0.992. So we are ready to rack this, which means transfer it with the siphon from this container into this container. The colors on this are interesting.
Totally changed color.
So there's like a pink layer that's maybe half an inch thick, and then a half inch thick of red. So it's interesting how that came out. And then there are a few very big floaties in there too that should go down to the bottom, so they shouldn't really be a problem. We won't talk while we're doing this transfer so that we can do it quickly. Fast motion till I get to the end. Well, not my finest work on siphoning.
Well, there's a lot of stuff going on in there.
Yeah, there were a lot of floaties, and it's very light, and it kept trying to get sucked up. So I'm going to abandon some of this, at least for now. What you can do is stick this in the refrigerator for a day or two, and let it basically cold crash this small amount, and it'll all settle back down again, and then try to get more out. And I think I will do that in this case. Try to get that sediment pushed back down again so that there's a layer of seltzer on top of it that I can then siphon out. Or you can even use a sucky thing if you have a long one, which we do. That'll reach down in there, not this one, but yeah, by putting this in the fridge and letting it cool, the sediment will stay at the bottom a little bit better, and we'll try to recover more. But for this purpose, we're good. So I'm just going to put this in the fridge and clear this off, and we'll continue. So our initial gravity
was 1.038.
And the final gravity was 0.992. So using our tool at craftywiners.com/tool, calculate ABV tool. This is a more accurate method than just doing the 131.25 if you're familiar with that, or the time is 135. This is much more accurate than that.
It came out to almost 6%.
So she'll write that on the batch note. It's what we wanted for this seltzer. There is stuff floating that was unavoidable.
Yeah.
It's very light, but the clearing, between the clearing things that we're going to add and cold crashing this, we'll get rid of those. So I took a sample of this out.
And then I'm going to put 1/8 of a teaspoon of queso salt right in here, and we will mix the rest of the stuff in this one. and he can explain why.
So chiasosol and chitosan both are clearing agents, and one clears positively charged particles and one does negatively charged particles. They're best to work separately. So she put the chiasosol in here, and we're
then
gonna stir it.
I'll be adding the rest of the stuff to that.
Yeah, to this quarter cup that we took out.
While this is sitting.
See the big floaties in here?
Yep.
And we also want to take a little taste of this because we have not yet. We're going to take it out of this main batch so that we're not depleting this too much. It's not going to be great because there's not going to be any sweet. It's going to probably taste of alcohol and maybe not a lot of watermelon flavor.
Yeah.
That's what I'm expecting.
You're correct.
Then there's this
Weird.
melony.
Yeah.
It doesn't really taste much of watermelon, but we're going to fix that.
Yes, we are. But first, I'm going to mix up the rest of these ingredients.
It's like a melony. It's like
cantaloupe.
Cantaloupe.
Yeah. That's what it is.
But we will fix that.
Here, I'll switch you. I'll take this.
And we'll put the measurements up on the screen, but chiasosol is done. That was a 1/8 teaspoon. Teaspoon of chitosan, and a 1/16 teaspoon of potassium metabisulfite. And that is very optional, as is potassium sorbate, very optional. If you're not going to add anything that is fermentable, you can skip. In this case, probably both of these, because this is a seltzer. You're not going to be trying to keep it for years. So it doesn't need to be as shelf stable, but you know your environment. If you think you're going to keep it for a few years, go ahead and do the potassium metabisulfite. That increases the SO2, which will make it a little bit more shelf stable. It also helps the potassium sorbate keep the yeast from re-fermenting anything new. So your choice. If you want to put this ingredient in here, you can read about it. Some people think it's harmful. Most people think it's not, including myself. But if in red wine, you definitely want to use this. You only want to use potassium sorbate, probably, if you're going to add a fermentable sugar back into this. What the sorbate does is makes it so that the yeast that's still in here, still alive, can't start a new fermentation. So if you're going to put anything like regular sugar, if you're going to put watermelon juice back in here, you're going to want to use this and then wait 24 hours before you add any flavorings. We are not going to do that, however. We've decided that we're going to use watermelon sugar-free syrup to flavor this. We do have juice available, but so far we have not come up with a good way of concentrating that juice so that we wouldn't be watering our product down to get enough flavor from it. We're still working on that. We'll have an answer, but we don't have an answer right now. So we're using syrup. And again, we're using sugar-free syrup so that it won't ferment. And that way we don't need to use this potassium sorbate. So
I did put that in.
Put this in if you want, if you're going to add fermentable sugar. She did put this in. This does make it more shelf stable. And this does a complement to the sorbate. It deprives them of oxygen, so it makes it harder for them to start a new fermentation. But those are optional. We're not doing it. We're not doing this one.
But what we do want to do is one that we didn't get out.
Bentonite.
So I'm going to go grab that. And magically, I have bentonite, which is a 1/4 teaspoon.
Bentonite helps clear. It's a clay, and particles will stick to it. Probably those big floaties, hopefully, will stick to it. We'll see.
Hopefully.
And then we want to wait a full hour to let this chiasosol work for long enough to do some good. Since we're videoing, we don't wait the full hour. We still get some effect from it. Yours will end up clearer than ours, probably, if you give it the full hour and they're by itself. The video time is money.
Ugh. Bentonite stuck.
So again, you would want to stop at this point and give this 24 hours for the potassium sorbate to make the yeast that's in here not able to reproduce to start up a new fermentation. If you're using flavoring that is fermentable, such as sugar, watermelon juice, sugared syrup, non-sugar-free watermelon syrup. But we don't need to worry about that because we're using sugar-free syrup. So we can go ahead and skip to the next stage now and not wait for 24 hours, which is what we're going to do. Now we're going to flavor it, but first we need to adjust the pH because adjusting the pH after you flavor it will change the flavor. 4.11.
Well, that's higher than I would have expected.
But remember, we didn't lower it. It started.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We
high.
didn't. Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
Watermelon has malic and citric acid, and we pretty much don't like to use citric in anything other than lemonade because it is so lemony. So we're going to use malic, and I guess we need our mixing stuff. We usually try to do a 1/4 teaspoon at a time, but we're sure that that's not going to be enough, so we're going to do a 1/2 teaspoon. If you're not really familiar with adjusting pH, we recommend you do a 1/4 teaspoon at a time and then remeasure between each. But it's going to probably take more than a 1/2.
It's quite a ways to go.
You could do a blend of citric and malic if you wanted to stick closer to what watermelon normally has in it, naturally has in it. And I'll put the proportions up on the screen. I don't know them off the top of my head. Again, we're not going to do citric just because we're really averse to using citric in anything except for lemonade.
All kinds of floaties.
Don't let this bother you because we will be cold crashing it after we flavor it, and all of that stuff will sink to the bottom. And then we'll rack it again. We'll talk about that when we get closer. There's a lot of CO2 in this. You see the fizzing. And you also don't need to worry about that if you're going to do it the way that we're doing it, which is a forced carbonation. Doesn't matter that there's a little CO2 still in here. If you're going to naturally carbonate it, you probably want to let it sit long enough that most of the CO2 is gone. Or degas it like our oxygenation video shows you how to do.
Or stir it forever.
Forever and ever. We'll retake our pH. Okay, so we did a total of 1.5 teaspoons to get to where it is now, which is 3.78 or 9, depending on which one you want to. It switches back and forth.
I'll put 3.78.
3.78 is good. Anything 3.8 and below is going to be shelf stable enough. So we're good with pH. This most likely actually has a lower pH too. It may lower this a little bit more,
yeah.
but we're not going to worry about that. I'm going to rinse off my pH meter and be right back. Now we're to the point of flavoring. So
yes,
we've never used the sugar-free syrup and used less than 2 ounces.
Correct.
So we're going to start with 2 ounces and see what it tastes like, and we'll go from there.
This is the Da Vinci.
This is Da Vinci, sugar-free. Again, we talked about the considerations there. If you're going to use syrup that has sugar in it, that's fine. You'll be a few more calories, not much probably, and you have to use the potassium sorbate and give it 24 hours to make the yeast not able to reproduce anymore so that it doesn't start fermenting again. If it starts fermenting again, you can have bottle bonds or it goes dry and has no sugar in it again and more alcohol, which is probably not what you were after. So this is exactly 2 ounces of the syrup. As we put this in there,
it's going to make the color come back.
It's going to make it look like watermelon again. I'm just based on the taste of this thinking this isn't going to be nearly enough.
I don't think so either.
But we're going to start with 2.
Smells like watermelon.
I'm not going to take very big samples out of this to taste and probably just let her taste them initially because I don't want to use up a lot of our juice. So yeah, based on color alone, it looks more like peach right now, not watermelon. Let's see if that's enough for you to figure it out. I don't think it's going to be enough.
Nope. Oops, sorry.
So we'll just do 2 ounces at a time and take small samples. So if you don't have a forced carbonation setup, if you want to get one, you can watch our video. Otherwise, you can do natural carbonation if you're using the sugar-free syrup. If you're using sugared syrup or you're using juice, you're going to have to account for the sugar grams that you put into it. And that's kind of above the scope of this video.
It can be done,
You
but
can do it using the nutrition label, but you'll use our carbonation calculator on craftywiners.com/tools for it to tell you how much sugar to put in. And you also need to account for the grams of sugar that you put in with either sugared syrup
or juice.
So you can still do the natural carbonation, though. Just don't forget to account for that sugar.
Or
And
you will have
can
an
do that.
explosion.
You don't have to have special equipment. You just need to use PET bottles, like soda bottle, that is designed for holding carbonation in.
Well, it's got a ways to go, I think.
Okay, we'll do another 2. So this is a total of 6. Probably when it starts looking more like watermelon, we're going to be close.
It still has a cantaloupe taste.
It'll get, I think probably all melons do, and it'll get covered up eventually. Oh, I'm hoping it doesn't end up being too sweet before it gets covered up.
I hope so too. Or we'll just call it cantaloupe seltzer.
I mean, I can put another 2 in and not waste the taste if you think we're that far, but...
You taste it.
More. We're going to do 3.
Okay, I wasn't crazy then.
3 ounces this time, so that's a total
That's
of...
a lot of syrup.
That's a total of what so far?
That would be 9 so far with the 3.
Color-wise, this is starting to look a lot more like watermelon.
Yeah. I don't know.
A lot better. So what are we at total right now?
6 total.
We're going to do 2 more. In my opinion, the cantaloupe taste is in the background now. But the sweetness level is starting to be more of a consideration for me. I don't want to make it a lot sweeter. So this 2 will take it up to 8 total ounces that we're...
11. 11 total ounces.
11 total
That's a lot of
ounces that we're
ounces.
putting in. Well, it's a third of a bottle of the syrup.
We've kind of learned in this watermelon endeavor that watermelon's a tricky flavor to keep the flavor, which I think is why, like, Jolly Ranchers and stuff, and even the Truly seltzers taste a little fakey.
She always gives me most of the watermelon seltzers.
Because I love watermelon. I eat watermelon.
She doesn't think that they taste right. And I'm fine drinking them because I don't care as much on that, but that might be why she's being more picky on this, too. I don't think...
Probably.
I thought that last taste was okay, but let's see what this is. There's a lot of particles floating around now. And that will affect the taste. What she's drinking might have there could still be some watermelon rind that you're tasting as far as that cantaloupe taste.
Possible.
Could be the particles. So cold crashing this might completely change that taste as well.
Okay, give me a little bit more, and I'm going to think of this like it's a Jolly Rancher. It looks like a watermelon Jolly Rancher. And that is closer to it. And the carbonation is going to change that, so it might make it more of a...
It's got a lot of flavor. It still has that cantaloupe back end. I'm willing enough to bet that goes away if we cold crash that. I'm thinking that that's the particles that are floating around that we're tasting.
It could be, yeah.
So, although we intended to end this video today, I think we're going to have to come back after we let this cold crash and do a tasting and or carbonate it and do a tasting after cold crash, and we'll tell you how the final result has. This has a lot of flavor, and it should, because we put a third of a bottle of this stuff in it, which makes this kind of an expensive seltzer.
Yeah, it does.
I don't think we probably needed to go as far as we did. You could have gotten by with less. I think that cold crashing is going to end up being important. We probably should have planned this out prior to recording, but we're going to cold crash this. We're going to stick this in our fridge, which is like 34 degrees, for 3 days. We may do a tasting off camera just to make sure that we're still on track with where we thought we were going to be.
Yeah.
And then we will force carbonate it and come back on camera with that final result and tell you how it tastes. And
how we achieved it.
If it's bad, you'll never see this video.
So we finished carbonating our watermelon. I guess we decided to call it a seltzer.
Seltzer seems right.
Yeah. Sparkling watermelon something.
See the
It's definitely carbonated.
carbonated.
And we have not tasted this yet, so this is new to us.
Colors.
It looks pretty.
Pretty. Looks like watermelon.
Looks like one of those watermelon Jolly Ranchers. It's the same color.
Let's see if it tastes like that.
That would be a no. It does not taste like that.
I still smell cantaloupe.
Yeah. I'm not gonna put anything into your head until you've tasted it, but I'll just put it this way. I taste melon. Not necessarily watermelon. It's not actually terrible.
There's a little hint of the cantaloupe taste and smell that I don't like.
That's just because we don't really care for cantaloupe.
There is a lot of watermelon. There's more watermelon flavor now than before we carbonated it.
Which is weird, because normally it works the other way.
It's better now that it's carbonated.
Yeah, it is.
But because I don't like cantaloupe so much,
I don't either.
I don't know that I would drink very much of it. I think if you're a fan of cantaloupe in watermelon, you would love this, probably.
It's definitely melony.
It's got a lot of flavor. It's just got that, it's like it's a background.
Background cantaloupe?
Yeah. But otherwise, it's pleasant. I like the color.
The color is pretty. The carbonation's great. The sweetness level's good.
I have to say, after tasting it, when we racked it, this is better now.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the time, it's been a month.
Yeah.
Possibly, because we went on vacation.
Oh, yeah, probably. It's been about a month.
Some time has passed, and that might have helped too. One thing that might have been good, we did cold crash this.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe waiting a little bit longer before we carbonated it and bottled it might have been a way of getting rid of some of that flavor, but we did cold crash it. I don't know where that. Let me grab the batch note. So this is basically 2 months old. It's 2 months since we started fermenting it.
Okay.
And then it's been 3 weeks approximately since we put it into the carbonator. So it's had time. I mean, 2 months isn't a terribly long time. Longer time might get rid of the cantaloupe, but I kind of doubt it because I think that melon is the base.
It is.
It's the base flavor when the sweetness and some of the watermelon flavor goes away. So I think that's going to be built into anything where you use the watermelon rind
and
or fruit.
Real watermelon, that flavor is really hard to reproduce.
Yeah,
it's fake flavor in the Jolly Ranchers.
We talked to a guy that's done this longer than us, and he has a meadery. He said that they usually vacuum extract the watermelon flavor. So we're going to have to do some research into that, how that works and how that is different. I thought maybe we were going to be saying this was a kind of a failure based on our taste when we tasted this, when we racked it. However, it's better than I thought. And if you like cantaloupe, I don't think you'd mind it. I think it's actually probably pretty good if you like cantaloupe, but we don't. So
I actually expected that I was going to taste it and want to throw it out. But I don't feel that way, actually, about it.
Do you want the rest of it? Not that much, right?
I might not like it that much, but...
Okay, well. So,
but, yeah, it's definitely melony.
Yeah, and the watermelon taste is good.
Yeah.
Just the cantaloupe isn't. So, there you have it. That's how you make it.
So thank you guys again for your time watching this video. Hope it was interesting. Maybe you'll try it if you like cantaloupe. Maybe you won't if you don't like cantaloupe, but it's actually really not too bad. Please like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And until next time, cheers!